general, came and spoke to Abraham in verse 22, saying this, God is with you in all that you do. Now, wouldn't you say, my goodness, what a statement for Abimelech to make, that he has been shafted by Abraham, but God comes to Abimelech and saves him from the sin, and Abimelech can see, Abraham, whatever you do, God is with you in this. If you've got room in the margin of your Bible, why don't you write this? Would somebody say the same thing about me? Would someone say the same thing about me? I'm saying you, us, right? Would somebody come along and say, wow, Jeff, I see that God is with you in everything you do. You know what? I don't know of a higher compliment. I really don't. Your mustache is great. Well, no, that's a little thing, okay? All right? Hey, you look pretty good as your hair falls out, okay? All right? No. Yeah. Hey, wait a minute. Okay. Let Pastor Steve say this. You got some great bird dogs. All right. Okay. Now that's a pretty high compliment for the old man here. Okay. No, nothing like this. This is a man who has been shafted, so to speak, by Abraham. And Abimelech says, God is with you in all that you do. Hey, it put the fear of God in him, didn't it? Okay? All right? Okay, now here it comes. Ready? You're right, though. We don't know everything, do we? Okay? Now, verse 23. Now, therefore, swear, take an oath, as your Bible might read, swear to me by God that you will not deal falsely with me. Abimelech says, Abraham, you've found a home where we are. This is good. I like it. But from now on, you are going to deal righteously with me. Do you understand? I want you to raise your right hand and swear to that. That's there because of what's happened in the background. Now watch this, though. Abimelech says that you not deal falsely with me, with my offspring, or with my posterity. Now, you and I might think, what in the world is that? If you look down into the latter part of that verse, he also mentions the land. Okay? So what Abimelech is saying is that while you're here, I want you to promise me that you're going to deal justly with me, with my offspring, and my land. Remember, Abimelech's a king. You deal righteously with everybody while you're here. Do I hear your yes on this? Do I hear your stick your pinky out here. Let's pinky promise on that. Is that what they say, Maggie? Yeah. Pinky promise? Let's make a pinky promise. Hey, listen, we're going to make a deal here. The first thing I see in this passage is that Abimelech was still carrying that with Abraham. And he had to get it off of his chest. All right? Now, that's the first thing I see here. So let's look at the rest of the verse. Not to deal falsely with me, with my offspring. I'm not going to be here forever, but my kids are. So you're going to deal with them too. All right? And my posterity, that according to the kindness that I have done to you, you will do to me and to the land in which you have dwelt. In verse 24, Abraham said, I will swear. Now that's about 50% of this. But now Abraham has a problem with Abimelech. But unfortunately, Abimelech doesn't even know it. So let me throw this out. Folks, if you guys go around with something in your head or heart against another person, and that person doesn't know it, then how in the world can that be healed? Right? Get it off your chest. Say, listen, I need to sit down and talk with you for a minute. Okay? This happened to me in college. I actually, and I know this is going to be so hard for you guys to believe, but I had a dear friend that I kidded with so much that he finally sat me down and said, Steve, I never know when you're telling me the truth. You kid around so much. Will you please be more serious with me? Now, can you believe that somebody would say that to me? All right? And so, okay, all right. So now Abraham has a problem with Abimelech, but he doesn't even know it. And so here's the whole situation here. It appears that Abimelech's got this off of his chest. And by the way, watch this. I think if you got something with another person, and you know the gospel tells us this, right? You know, the gospel says, hey, if you're about to make an offering and you got something against a Christian brother, leave your offering there and go and make peace with them and then come back. Well, God is saying this, listen, I want you to have peace with other people, so don't come and throw a sham at me. That's kind of how I look at it. So let's look now at verse 25. Once the door is open, I added that, but verse 25 says this, then Abraham rebuked Abimelech because of a well of water which Abimelech's servants had seized. I would imagine that you all know that water was a very hot commodity back in those days. Okay? There were two things that people needed seriously. They needed good water and they needed salt. Salt? Pray tell, why? All right. Because they didn't have refrigeration. So they salt-dried meats and fishes and, okay? So this water is a hot commodity. Abraham had dug the well, but Abimelech's servants had seized it. And this was eaten Abraham's lunch. All right? And verse 26, and Abimelech said, I don't know anything about it. I do not know who has done this thing. You didn't tell me, nor had I heard it until today. So, now the air is being cleared. I believe that what happens next, and again, this seems kind of minor, but let's kind of talk about it here, is that maybe after Abraham wanted to jump on this wagon and say, well, since you're getting some air cleared, let me get some air cleared. And when he found out that Abimelech didn't even know this, he felt apologetic. Okay? So this is what happens next. As much as back over here in chapter 20, verse 14, Abimelech blesses Abraham, now Abraham's going to turn around and bless Abimelech. All right? In verse 27, so Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant, a deal. They shook hands. By the way, I hope you guys know this, but it takes two to make a covenant. All right? And Abraham, verse 28, set 7 ewe lambs. Now, ewe is E-W-E. We know that those are females, right? Female lambs of the flock by themselves. It appears to me that there are at least two things that are taking place here, and that is that this is kind of like a twofold covenant. There are gifts given twice, and Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. They're not really mentioned in verse 27, but I don't think this is a big deal, okay? We won't make it a big deal. But Abraham basically takes 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. Then Abimelech asked Abraham, what's the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs which you have set by themselves? And he said, you will take these 7 ewe lambs from my hand, that they may be my witness that I have dug this well. Now this is the well Beersheba. Therefore he called that place Beersheba, because the two of them swore an oath there. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. So Abimelech rose with Phicol and the commander of his army, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. Now, let me help you with interpreting the Bible, okay? Because I want to say a couple more things here in this chapter. At this moment, the Philistines were not in that land, but later they would be. By the time you and I know that Moses received this and is the author of Genesis, by that time, God referred to that land that they went back to as the land where the Philistines lived. But at this moment, they're not living there. That's no big problem, okay? Watch this. someday there may be a neighborhood across the street, right? And we might refer to it as Silver Grove neighborhood. Okay? It's not there yet, but we could say some years down the road that the neighborhood that's there. Okay? So this is not a big issue. You read a commentary, sometimes commentators make big things out of small little issues. Okay. Then, look, verse 33. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there called on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. You might wonder, why in the world did Abraham plant a tree? This is probably, it's still kind of in vogue when someone passes away, and let's say, for instance, they were cremated and there's no marker or anything. People will plant a tree. They'll put a little memorial plaque there. Okay. I got a feeling, though, that Abraham probably planted this tree close to the well so it could get its roots down there, get some good water, grow real big. And now when people came by the well, they could sit in the shade also. Shade was another hot commodity. No, cool commodity in Bible times, right? So Abraham planted a tree, and Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines many, many days. All right, so now what I want you to do is think about this. Abimelech comes to Abraham to clear the air. Abraham comes back at Abimelech to clear the air. Now, to our knowledge, now I want you to look back a little bit before we start in chapter 22. But let's look back, because when Ishmael started making fun of little Isaac, do you remember what Sarah said? Out. Get rid of her and her son, because her son will not be an heir with my son. That's gone. That's done. And so, to me, to my knowledge, to my understanding, anything that Abraham bumped into through this walk up to this chapter has been pretty much taken care of. So let's look at chapter 22. We will not get through it tonight. There's lots here. But I'd like for you to take a look, and let's begin. In chapter 22, now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham. Now, I want you to get your fingers and your head and your mind and your heart around this. Because God doesn't tempt us, but He tests us. Satan tempts us to make us fall. God tests us to make us stronger. All right? I didn't play football, but I guess I could have run faster than anybody after me, I guess. I can still run faster than anybody who's chasing me. Ask my mom, right? Okay? All right? But watch this. During the week, the coach has practice. And kids will come off that field and go to the locker room and ask, is the coach trying to kill us? And the answer is, no. He's not trying to kill you. On Friday night, when you play football, the other team is trying to kill you. Right? He is tempering, the coach is tempering his team, testing it, making it stronger, so that when somebody tries to kill them, they can't do it. Now, as silly as an illustration that might be, let's look at this. We have an enemy, and he's trying to kill us. That's a temptation. He wants us to fall on our face. God tests His people so that they don't fall on their faces. All right? Now, let's just kind of talk here. What do you think God was testing? His faith. His trust. Okay? Now, you're hitting the nail right on the head, Michael. Okay? Now, up to this point, Abraham had left Ur of the Chaldees, left his relatives, took off with Lot, his family, and Sarah. Okay? They went to a land that they had never seen before and didn't know they were there until God says, okay, you're here now. Right? God tests Abraham and Sarah when it comes to not having a child yet. God tests Abraham